What's up, guys? Iceman here. Welcome to Meditations. So, I'm going to have to put it bluntly to you guys. They're trying to destroy the US dollar. All right. Now, some people don't know this, but in the 70s, this guy in the United States, I think it was Nixon, he signed the dollar off the gold standard, all right, where it was actually backed by something of intrinsic value. And that was the time when it could be infinitely inflated into oblivion. And somewhere in that, the rest of the world began to base their economies and their other currencies off of the US dollar. And you can know this by going anywhere, and everybody wants to use the damn dollar. Most of them prefer it over their own currency because it's more stable, or it has been anyway for a while. And I've observed this for several years now. I purchased some gold and silver about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's now gained about 40-50% in value. If you look at the charts, you'll see it just skyrocketing, right? And gold is at record highs right now. Silver is far from it, but well, it's not far from it, but it's slower. And the reason why gold is really high is they say that the world is on fire. All right. And when people are afraid, and big banks and governments, they'll buy basically what is the standard world currency in a natural aspect, which is gold. You can melt it down, and nowadays more than ever, it's utilized in electronics and technology, which of course didn't exist thousands of years ago when it was still the base world currency because it had a lot of value then. I think people just liked it because it was pretty, it was malleable, it was heavy, it was rare. But now, I mean, it actually has practical value now, you know? Of course, you could argue that nukes are more valuable than gold, which I guess they are, because if you have the damn nukes, you could go take the gold. And that's kind of where this is going. The world's on fire, man. So gold now is at record highs. The federal debt, which was sold out to private banks decades and decades ago, these various international conglomerates that you can barely even locate. It's just unbelievable what's happened with it. And now they can print the hell out of it and inflate it to hell. And people see prices going up, right? They see like, oh, Iceman, my food's going up. Oh, Iceman, the gas is going up. Oh, Iceman, the housing's going up. There's a lot of factors involved in that. But one of which is it's not that like food companies just were like, wow, look, we can price food higher and people still buy it. And they just price it higher and people still buy it. Or the gas companies are, oh, look, we can just keep pricing it higher and they just keep buying it. There wasn't all of a sudden just this big realization in like the last year, you know? This has been a slow buildup. And if that were the case, if there were ones who are like, oh, look, we can just price it higher, what you have to do is make more competition. You got to incentivize more competition. You got to deregulate. You got to incentivize them to get into the business to where there's so many people in the food industry that it's just a race to the bottom with prices, you know, and that'll bring down the prices. But of course, a lot of it is revolved around energy because you got to transport the shit and that's how it's made. So the target really is the energy. So the same aspect applies. If you allow for more competition, incentivize people to make energy, it's going to be a race to the bottom of the price. And I've been selling shit for a while. Let me know if you guys ever sold anything before. Some of the things that I sell are essential, similarly to food. So it's actually a great example. I would sell like t-shirts and underwear and things like that and socks, right? And what I would do to sell is the market's saturated, right? So you have to take good photos. You got to make a good advertisement. You basically get a better product than your competitor, and you look at the prices that they're asking, and then you undercut them. So, and with a lot of things, so many people do this that it gets to the point where it's not even worth selling anymore. So you just move on until it raises up again, and then you can get into that market again if you want. That's just how it works. It's called supply and demand or something. But unfortunately, what we see going on here, there's been a sort of veil pulled over our eyes. A lot of folks are in on it. And as mentioned, we're seeing the food prices go up. We're seeing the gas prices go up. We're seeing housing going up. I mean, part of that is there's just so many fucking people flooding in here. So they're taking up the resources. So it's shortening the supply, increasing the value. And when you have millions and millions and millions of people coming into your land, you don't know where the hell they came from, and they have to live somewhere. They have to eat. They, in many cases, have to drive somewhere, and they can. So all that shit's going to be bought up, and it's going to go up. And they're not in the system, so they're taking advantage of the baseline of the taxation. And they're not accounted for in it, so it's going to be haywire and cause chaos. But that's beside the point of this video. Unfortunately, the dollar is devaluing like crazy. The U.S. dollar, and this is a big deal for the entire world. And the news doesn't talk about it because the news is owned by the same interests who are interested in destroying the dollar. So the United States has been sort of a police of the world for a while. You know, there's bases all over the frickin' place. There's like 150, 160 military bases outside of the country. And they've been involved in who knows how many wars, a lot of them through the military-industrial complex, which is another means of devaluing the dollar and destroying it, while at the same time fueling certain entities taking advantage of the dollar and causing this destabilization on a global scale. But the crazy part is, and you guys could look this up, you'd be like, well, wait a second, why does the news tell us that that's not what's going on? You know, why do they say, oh, it's just, we need more government control, you know? And the crazy thing is with government control, and they say, well, the way to get through this is to control the prices. You know, they say that with the food, for example. And the food industry, if you look at their profit margin right now, a lot of it has to do with the energy costs because the regulation on energy. Food companies make about 1.6% profit on their industry, right? So if you say, well, they're price gouging, which obviously isn't true. I mean, that's all they're fucking making. Then what that does is it just causes them to get out of the business. And again, what happens when they get out of the business? What happens when they can't thrive anymore, when they can't act? Well, there's an even more of a shortening of the supply. So the prices go up and there's scarcity. It calls a scarcity. And this shit has happened. They say it happened in the Soviet Union. They say it happened in Germany. They say it happened in Russia and Zimbabwe and all these other fucking places. In Cuba, I think, right? And all this shit happen when they have price control. And what that does is it's a centralization of power. So when they say, oh yeah, we're going to price control, we're going to regulate, ultimately what that does is it makes the one regulating, which is the government, it makes them the corporation, right? So they become the corporation. They become the head corporation. So instead of just like everybody being involved and being at a race and, well, we all want to be our little corporations, it centralizes power, which I think is part of why that shit never worked, why it always collapses, right? Because then you have the few controlling the many. And of course, they're empowered by greed and everything else. And it's just one corporation and they don't allow any other ones to exist. So the fucking thing collapses. That's just how it works, I think. So right now, yeah, if you look it up on Google, who owns the media, right? Who owns the news? Like all these articles that we see, like, oh, it's a bad thing to tax imports, right? Who's writing these fucking articles? Well, it's probably the ones who are doing the importing. And sure enough, it is. All the news and media, you can see this on Google, which is shocking. 6 global corporations. It's like Time Warner, Viacom, Disney, Comcast, all these other big conglomerates that are like global entities, right? So they're all controlling the media. And this includes things like the dissenting ones, like Fox News, for example. They say it's called controlled opposition, where they know they have to have an opposition for the people to feel like they're free, right? So that you can have them argue with each other and this and that. So you control the opposition. So they'll talk about some things that are maybe relevant and concerning, but they won't really get down to the nitty gritty, like kind of what I'm talking about right now. How all these fuckers they're working to destroy the US dollar. And what's crazy is when that happens, that's why we're seeing gold go up, because there's less and less trust in the currencies. And they have to have trust in the US dollar for these things to continue working the way that they are. And you're ignorant if you think that the big red dragon country out there wants to just keep making us plastic shit for cheap forever. All right. You guys ever read the book, The Art of War? I haven't, but I mean, I've never read it. But I mean, I think I kind of understand the premise. All right. It's not just about making us cheap shit forever just because they want to do that for fun and enslave their people. All right. It's something a lot more than that, which is probably why we're seeing things go the way they are. And strangely enough, if you look at manufacturing, like, you know how shit's all made in other countries. I used to not understand that. I was like, well, why the hell it's just because it's cheaper. But why is it cheaper? Well, they have less labor laws. They have it's less labor laws. In some cases, forced labor, and the devaluation of the dollar, regulation that's been done here. That it's like saying, well, you can compete with them, but your arms are going to be tied behind your backs. You know, with the regulation. It's like playing football. It's like, okay, well, this country, they're good football players and they don't get paid that much by their government. It's more forced labor, but you guys can still play against them. But you're going to have both arms tied behind your back through regulation. And yeah, you can still play, but see, we're seeing that happen. Where it's like, oh yeah, you can still manufacture stuff, but I mean, your arms are tied behind your fucking back. So good luck, you know? That's kind of what's going on here. And this transition is starting to occur of power. And one thing about the gold that I have is I notice a lot of people talk shit about it, and it's understandably so. You basically buy it as a doomsday savior, right, in terms of your finances. Because people are buying it because it helps you transition to a new currency, because it's always going to have value. You don't buy it as an investment, right? You just buy it out of fear. I mean, some people buy it as, like I could sell mine right now and it gained 40% in value, right? And it's not like the dollar lost shit. Maybe it has. It really might have lost 40% value. Holy fucking shit. Yeah, they say that those numbers that the news gives us are fake. You know, they say, oh yeah, the groceries only went up 25%. Does anyone actually believe that? That's another problem with the bad guys owning the media, is they lie and they deceive. On both sides, this whole thing has been a contrived conglomerate deception. All right. So you're seeing this shit go down. The dollar's losing its value. And you have these other countries across the ocean. They're working to make their own world reserve currency, which is backed by gold or whatever. They call it the BRICS nations, right? It's Brazil. It's Russia. It's India. It's China. It's South Africa, and probably others. Here's the crazy part. If they establish this, and you see it going on right now, like you see the whole war with Russia and everything, and China's doing trade with them, this and that, because they know that they're going to be working on this new currency. They want to get the United States out of this mess so they can have centralized control. And the problem is, can we trust that? Like some would say, well, the United States is based off of maybe, I don't know, helping the world or Christianity or something. While these other nations, I mean, look at them by their fruits, right? What are they doing? Well, big red dragon countries probably enslaved their people for a long time. Communism, right? Is that a good thing? Do you want that to run the fucking world? I mean, probably not. What is that really going to look like? You know, I mean, they outlaw religion and stuff. You know, some would say, oh, that's a great idea. But I mean, I don't know if it is. I mean, if you believe in Jesus or whatever, and the helping of your neighbor, the being kind to your enemy even, or if you go the other way, an eye for an eye, the whole world is blind, right? Isn't that the saying? So, I mean, you can put that shit together and make what you will with it. But the point is, it's being worked on to get the United States out of this whole thing. And if they have their dollars in their economies, right, and they have their trillions of dollars, because we've been printing the hell out of the money, if they throw them all back to the United States, it's going to cause massive inflation. It's called hyperinflation. All of a sudden, we're going to have trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars coming back to us. And we're not going to have like manufacturing here. And these people aren't going to want to do manufacturing for us anymore because they're not going to want our money. You know what I mean? They're just going to be like, this is how they fuck us over. And this is how the whole world is altered forever. Well, for who knows how long. This is how the nation falls. All right, this is how the world falls and becomes under a new order. And what would that look like here? I think it would be chaos and destruction. And I don't know how we'd get through it. There would have to be uncharted levels of quantitative easing and quantitative, the other one. You know, they'd have to be massive levels of that. And it would be extremely unstable. And the problem is we don't have functioning assets. You know, it used to be we had a lot of functioning assets. They say decades and decades and decades ago, even hundreds of years ago, you know how like you could have a household under one income, you know, and you could actually just work like a basic job and be able to support your family. What happened is why that doesn't work anymore. It's not because the companies just realized they can just ask for more money and just get rich. You know what I mean? They would have done that way back. People aren't that fucking stupid. You know, back in the Stone Age days, if somebody was selling cherries and they just price whatever the fuck they want on them, you know, it's not like it's just slowly, oh, wow, look, we could just keep pricing them higher. This happened because of the devaluation of the dollar. All right. That's why all this shit goes up. And back in those days, we were manufacturing, we were utilizing, we were producing, right? And that's the whole thing is you have to be able to produce. We've opened Pandora's box with this whole infinite inflatable dollar, right? That the whole that's the world reserve currency that everybody relies on. We've opened the fucking box, so there's no closing. You could say, well, let's just stop. Let's just cut all spending. It's going to do the same fucking thing if you do that. The whole nation's going to collapse. The world's going to back out of the dollar. We're going to be fucked. So you can't do that. You got to somehow be able to leverage and manage this debt, while perhaps pulling out more. It's not what I would do at a personal level, but I wouldn't have made these decisions at a personal level. You know, I wouldn't have gotten myself in this place where all the world is reliant on your fucking fake currency. You know what I mean? So you have to deal with it as it is now. And it's not by just cutting it all off. I mean, a lot of regulation of it would be important too. There's a lot of waste in it. And so that's something you have to attack. But you have to get your assets functioning again and to be productive for the world to have confidence in your dollar. You know what I mean? You have to utilize your fucking resources. You have to manufacture things. You have to utilize the energy you have in order for the world to be confident in your dollar. And obviously, these entities are completely against that. And that's what this is all about. All right, that's why you're seeing on the news, you know, they're getting people talking about like whether or not like these folks on one side are like, well, we want more boys to get their dicks cut off. You know what I mean? Like they're worried about things like that. And they're like, well, we want, we want schools to keep teaching kids that everything's racist because that's a great idea. You know, that'll make a great civilization going forward as we just keep separating them by their race and ethnicity and backgrounds and everything else and just tell them that everything's racist. You know, what a great idea that is. You know, you got these people concerned about stuff like that. When what they really, you know, these things wouldn't even be an argument if we don't have a fucking civilization, you know? So for those of you who want like the kids keep getting their dicks cut off or whatever. That's okay if you want to worry about that and argue about why that's a great idea, but you should worry about that later. You know, you have to first make sure you have a functioning civilization. And it's not going to be functioning if it keeps going in this direction, or you're not going to be able to wage for that anymore. You know, and I want you to be able to wage for that. You know, if you want the boys to keep getting their fucking dicks cut off, then you should be able to have a place to say that that's what you want and try to make your case, why that's a great idea. You know, why it's a great idea to keep telling everybody how everything's racist. You know, what a great, you know, if you think that's a great idea, then you should be able to make your case for it. But the point being is there's not going to be any cases to be made on anything if this whole fucking thing collapses. So you got to put the carriage after the horse, you know what I mean? And plus we're getting close to a big fucking war. Let me ask you this. Is it a good idea when you're dealing with nuclear powers, like that big bear country, right? And that little one next to it, and all the shit that's been happening in the Middle East for decades, actually thousands of years. Let me ask you this. Is it a good idea to just keep sending them hundreds of billions of dollars, kindling the flames, if you will, to potentially start World War III? Or is it a better idea to maybe try to go over there and negotiate something and de-escalate things? Let me know in the comments, what do you think is a better idea? Because have you ever heard of nuclear winter? Yeah, it's just what happens. These simulations have been done. It's what's going to fucking happen if you corner any of these countries or nations who have nuclear power. If you corner them enough, it's a high probability they're going to use their fucking weapons. And a lot of these things are set up to where, say that we were to launch nukes on one of them, right? They're set up to where before our nukes even reach them, their nukes come back to us, right? So before the fucking nuke hits them and gets rid of them or whatever we think we're trying to do, their nuke's going to be in the fucking air, all right? So then it's going to come hit us too. And they got a bunch of them. In fact, they have probably the most in the world. So I read this years and years ago, and it's even higher now. But according to the information available, there's enough nuclear power and weapons currently, active weapons, that are capable throughout various nations that are the nuclear powers, one of which is that Big Bear country and Big Red Dragon country, and ours, the United States. There's enough to kill every living fucking thing 30 times over again, all right? So for those who are like, well, we need to worry about the things that matter, like whether or not we can get the baby sucked out or the fetus sucked out of us in 8 or 9 months or whatever, and whether or not the government should pay for that, and whether or not, you know, we should convince boys to get their dicks cut off. You know, they got them worried about that stuff. But no, they should realize that what's going on here is those are surface level things, you know? What's really going on is they're trying to destroy the fucking dollar, and they're brainwashing everybody into thinking like, oh, we need to cut this off, or boys, you know? I mean, you'd think that if you were the enemy running the fucking show here, running the media, I mean, this might be some of the stuff that you'd get people thinking about. You'd be like, how do we destroy a nation from within? We'll be like, well, we could get them to cut their boys' dicks off. We'd be like, what? They'd be like, they'll never fucking do that. We'll be like, no, we could probably convince half of them to wage for that shit. You'd be like, are you fucking kidding? This is like a sci-fi movie. They'd be like, no, watch. Let's do it. We'll get them to worry about stuff like that. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on these matters. And we'll also, you know, what we'd also do is we'd control all the industries and make their kids fatter and more unhealthy than ever, where 70% of them aren't even eligible to join their fucking military. You know? Maybe that's what they do. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, but I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace be with you.